Welcome back. We're going to have a quick look at some of the more advanced features, but just before we do that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of time to just have a little go with some of the other features that are also in here. An important one might be the spline tool. This allows you to draw wavy, wobbly lines. And it also enables you to modify those lines by modifying these points. So you can modify how wavy this line is, and you can change it. And you can also change where these points are. This is a really nice one to talk about after we talked about the accuracy. These are not accurate. This is how you would create a shape that you'd drawn that is wobbly and changes. Also, you may have noticed there that I went to click the spline tool and I slightly missed and clicked this button at the top. There are different toolbars, and Fusion automatically goes to the correct toolbar for you, but sometimes you can misclick and maybe end up pressing the wrong toolbar. So if you do that, you just need to go back over and we're in Sketch, and that will bring all the Sketch ones back. There's also a couple of other ones in here. There are some different types of circle. I'd highly recommend just having a go at drawing each different type of circle. There is also an arc tool, and there's different ways of doing an arc, and it's a good idea to have a look at those. There's also this one. This one's a really nice one. This is the polygon tool, and this allows you to draw an any-sided shape that you want. So you can see, I could say, okay, I want the side of my shape to be 10 millimeters long. I always draw it slightly wonky, so I can press Tab and 0 to make it nice and straight. And then what we can do is we can decide how many sides we want that shape to have. So you can see the standard is set to 6, but we can set it to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And we can use this to create any shape that we want, equilateral polygon. That can be a really useful tool. It's quite difficult to draw a pentagon just using the line tool, so that one's very useful. There's also an ellipse tool as well for drawing ellipses, and there's also the spline tool that we were just talking about. I have pretty much never used the slot tool and very rarely used any of these either. Down the bottom are some more complex ones that we'll talk about in a second. So if you'd like to have a little look at some of those tools, please go ahead and spend 5 minutes just trying to draw with some of those other ones. But right now, I'm going to move on to the more complex tools. So looking at the more complex tools, one of the ones we've got here is the mirror tool. And this does exactly what it says on the tin. It allows you to mirror something. It needs a mirror line, so it needs a line that you are going to mirror everything along. So let's say we want to mirror this upwards to make it a square, because it would be 25 plus 25. We would press the mirror tool and we'll get this dialog box up, and it asks objects, and it's asking what's the mirror line. Objects are what do you want me to mirror. We can select individually by clicking, or we can select by dragging over the top. Now, what you'll notice is if I drag everything and then try to select a mirror line, it won't let me because I've already got that selected. So what I'd have to do is click on the mirror line again to deselect it, and then press mirror line and say, hey, I want you to mirror along this line here, and it gives me a preview of what I'm going to mirror. This can be really handy when you're having to set lots and lots and lots of dimensions to be nice and precise, and you realize that, well, if I draw half of this, I can mirror it, and then I only have to do this half as much. So the mirror tool can be really useful. Another important thing about the mirror tool is you'll notice that these symbols come up. These symbols are telling you that these are mirrored, so these are paired up with each other. If I delete the mirror line that I used to create everything, I will delete these constraints that hold these things together. And you might be wondering why that's important. Well, if we go back to the dimensions and I go back and I do change the dimension of this circle and I change it to 10, what will happen is it will change the size of this circle here, because these circles are linked, because this is a mirror of this. So if I press return, you'll see that this circle also changes. If I were to grab a corner and drag it, not that I can drag that one, it would change the opposite side as well. If I grab the circle and I move it, it moves the other one because they are mirrored. Now, if I delete that line, all of these constraints will disappear. And now, if I change the size of this circle, it will not change the other circle. While the line is there, everything is linked. Once I delete it, they're not. You can also delete the individual constraints. So you can actually press on the constraint. You can see they both highlight. I can press delete. So I can keep everything else still mirrored and linked, but not this bit. So the mirror tool can be really useful. It doesn't need to just be a line that goes directly up and down or left and right, horizontal or vertical. You can mirror through an angled line. So if I were to grab everything here and select the mirror tool, deselect that line that I had, select it as a mirror line, it will reflect it in that angled line as well. Another tool that we've got, I'm going to have a look at, is the trim tool. So here you can see that this line crosses over here and crosses over here. And what I might want is for this to be the edge of my box. I might want a rounded edge. So I might use the trim tool just here, the scissors, and you can see when I hover over, this bit is highlighted red. Now what it does is it looks at that line and says, where does that line cross another line? And it crosses another line here. If I go on this side would be deleted. If I go on this side would be deleted. So I can trim here and I can trim here. Now, currently this circle is also intersecting with this line. So if I want to trim this piece here off, I can press, or maybe if I wanted to trim this bit here off, I could trim that bit there off. So let's trim it like that. And that would give me a fillet on the corner. That would round my corner off. Now, that is quite tricky to do, but if we had some lines coming in like this, and we just wanted to trim these, we could cut into our edge like that. So this can be quite useful to cut things down and change things by trimming them against the lines. Now this rounded fillet we did, there's actually a fillet tool. So if we go up to here, you can see it says fillet, and if I select this line and this line, it will automatically round the corner off, and I can decide how much I round it off. I can either use the arrow by dragging it, or I can type in a specific amount. So I can add a fillet. So have a little experiment with the fillet tool and the trim tool. And at this point here, what I'm going to say is have an experiment with some of these tools. Maybe the spline tool might be a good idea, and you can just cut into one of your edges a little bit, make a bit of a strange shape, and then you can use the trim tool to just trim the edges so you've got a slightly wobbly line on there, like that. Make sure you add a fillet somewhere, or a fillet or two, and use the trim tool. And once you've done with that, take a screenshot of the whole screen corner to corner, and I'll see you in the next video.